Welcome back to the studio. Today we begin the careful restoration of a beautiful old painting, a romantic scene filled with charm, emotion, and quiet storytelling. This artwork shows a man and a woman sharing a gentle, intimate moment in a peaceful garden. She stands with grace, dressed in rich fabrics and delicate lace, while he sits nearby looking at her with admiration. Their elegant clothes and hairstyles tell us they lived in the 1700s, a time when love, beauty, and manners were often shown through art. Scenes like these were very popular back then. Artists loved to paint romantic stories like this one, where two people connect in a quite beautiful place. These paintings were not just decoration, they were a way to showing feelings, dreams, and the joy of life. This painting is in urgent need of restoration. It has a visible tear, likely caused by an impact or a fall. There are also several small holes scattered across the canvas, and in some areas the paint has been completely lost. The edges of the canvas are in poor condition, and the nails holding it in place are heavily rusted. Looking at the back, we can see that it's probably mounted on its original stretcher frame. This type of construction was common in the 18th century. Unlike modern stretchers, it doesn't have the wooden keys we use today to adjust tension. We can also see several patches on the back, signs of old restorations that were done many years ago. These previous repairs have aged poorly and will need to be carefully removed and replaced with new, more stable interventions. The painting is extremely dirty and covered with a thick yellow layer of varnish, which makes it almost impossible to see the original colors underneath. This is clearly one of those complex restoration projects with many different steps, and I will guide you through each one along the way. We begin the restoration with the painting laid flat on the table, giving us a full access to its surface. Underneath the tear, I place a piece of plywood to support the area. This will allow me to apply pressure safely later on without risking further damage to the canvas. Before any deeper interventions, the first step is to gently remove the surface dust. After so many years in storage, a fine layer of dirt and debris has settled on the painting. A silent trace of time passed, waiting for this moment of care. Using a soft brush and a low suction vacuum, I carefully lifted the dust without disturbing the fragile paint layer beneath. It's a small but essential beginning, clearing the way for the delicate work that lies ahead. With the surface dust removed, we move on to examine the tear more closely. Using a magnifying lamp with a wide field of view, I can see the full extent of the damage. This allows me to inspect the fibers, cracks, and surrounding paint in detail without straining the canvas. For even closer inspection, I use a second magnifier. Under this lens, the story of the tear becomes clear. It appears to be the result of a sharp impact. The paint layer has suffered some losses, but thankfully many of the canvas fibers remain intact. The tear did not slice completely through the fabric. This gives us an advantage. It means I can realign and reinforce the canvas without major reconstructions. Every detail at this stage matters. The better I understand the damage, the more precise and respectful my repair will be. To prevent further damage and secure the fragile paint around the tear, the next step is structural stabilization. For this, I prepare a traditional adhesive fish glue, a time-tested material with excellent flexibility and adhesion, perfectly suited for conservation work. The process begins by carefully weighting both the fish gelatin and the corresponding amount of water, ensuring just the right concentration for this type of intervention. I then gently heat and stir the solution on a hot plate, allowing it to blend into a smooth, clear adhesive. Once the glue is ready, I apply it directly along the tear using a fine brush. To protect the paint during the process, I place a sheet of Malinex, a transparent non-stick film, over the area. Then, with a hot spatula, I apply localized heat to help the glue penetrate and secure the fibers beneath. This careful thermal setting helps achieve ideal consolidation without wrapping the canvas. Finally, I place layers of Malinex, soft felt, and a flat weight over the tear, holding everything in place for several hours so the adhesive can dry under gentle, even pressure. So we can see that it's already felt and some weight. Now that the paint layer has been stabilized, I can safely move on to the next step, removing the painting from its original structure. The frame is fragile and wrapped, and the canvas edges are held in place by old, heavily rusted nails. Taking out these nails is a slow and delicate process. They must be removed one by one to avoid tearing or distorting the aged fabric. Once the stretcher is detached, I begin cleaning the back of the painting. Over time, dirt, fibers, wood fragments, and other residues have built up across the reverse of the canvas, silent witnesses to centuries of handling, storage, and environmental exposure. With the help of a vacuum, a soft brush, and a slightly firmer sponge, I carefully remove this accumulated grime. The goal isn't perfection, but stability. I reduce future risks by eliminating the particles that can attract moisture, insects, or mold. This is quite work but essential, a deep clean that prepares the canvas for its next chapter. Before any further structural intervention, it's essential to address the fragile, deformed edges of the canvas. These areas have suffered from years of tension, dryness, and compression, leaving them brittle and uneven. To gently relax the fibers, I apply a light controlled humidity using a clean piece of linen, a leftover from a previous restoration. With the help of localized heat, I pass a small tacking iron across the edge, encouraging the fabric to soften and lay flat. This action also helps lift out ingrained dust trapped in the canvas weave, contributing to a cleaner and more responsive surface. As I progress, I immediately place a piece of felt over the treated section, followed by a flat weight. This allows any residual moisture to evaporate slowly while keeping the canvas flat and stable, preventing wrapping or shrinkage. It's a careful balance of heat, humidity, and pressure, preparing the edge to later accept a lining or be restretched safely without new distortions. Now that the canvas is uniformly flat and stable, I can begin treating the reverse side, starting with the removal of old repair patches. These remnants from past interventions were applied using different materials and techniques, each one posing its own challenge. On this first patch, I begin by applying a small amount of solvent to soften the adhesive and reduce mechanical stress during the removal. But as the solvent reacts, it becomes clear that the adhesive used in this area is far more rigid than expected, likely a very aged animal glue. I'm forced to scrap with a scalpel, gently but persistently, layer by layer until the patch begins to lift. This step requires patience. It's not just about removing what's visible. I must ensure that every trace of the old material is fully eliminated to prevent future interference with new consolidation work. I repeat the same method on a second patch nearby. This one proves equally stubborn, thick, embedded, and deeply adhered into the canvas fibers. Bit by bit, I dissolve and lift the remnants using fine blades, scalpels, and brushes to return the canvas to a clean, neutral state, as close as possible to its original structure. This may be one of the most time-consuming parts of the process, but it is absolutely necessary, not only to improve aesthetics but to honor the integrity of the restoration to come. This restoration is particularly special because it allows me to demonstrate three different techniques for repairing tears, holes, and small punctures, each adapted to the type and severity of the damage. The first method I will show is called Incestration. It involves creating a perfect fitted insert using a piece of canvas with identical weight and weave to the original, or as close as possible. First, I place this canvas beneath the wall and using a pencil carefully trace the exact contour of the missing area. I then cut along the outline and test the fit, adjusting it until the insert sits flush with the surrounding fabric. Once aligned, I secure it in place using a acid-free tape to prevent movement during bonding. On the reverse of the painting, I apply a powdered thermoplastic adhesive, a conservation grade heat activated material that becomes tacky only when heated and remains fully reversible. Using a hot spatula, I gently activate the adhesive through a protective film of Malinex. This allows the insert to bond evenly to the surrounding fibers, reinforcing the damaged area without stiffening the canvas. It's a precise and respectful solution that restores stability without altering the texture or tension of the original fabric. The next structural repair involves a tear that still retains its original canvas fibers but has lost its paint and the ground layer. In this case, I apply the bridging technique, a method that allows the tear to be stabilized while remaining almost invisible. I begin by harvesting individual threads from a compatible piece of linen canvas, gently removing them one by one along the wrap or weft. Once I have enough, I cut the threads to uniform lengths, preparing them for precise placement. Working from the reverse side of the painting, I dip each thread into a small amount of reversible adhesive specially formulated for conservation. Using dental tools, I lay them gently across the tear, perpendicular to the gap, like tiny bridges connecting the intact canvas on both sides. These threads reinforce the structure without introducing bulk, allowing the canvas to move and flex naturally. Some of you may notice a small open line still visible in the tear. This is expected. The original fibers of the canvas remain intact underneath, but the upper layers were lost. That missing material, the ground and the paint, will be carefully reintegrated later in the restoration process. For now, the goal is structural. I align each bridging fiber with the original weave as closely as possible. Once all threads are in place, I cover the area with a layer of Malinex soft felt and a flat weight, allowing the adhesive to dry under gentle pressure. When I finally remove the weight, it's always satisfying to see that the process has worked. The tear is secure, flexible, and nearly invisible from the reverse. When the damage is too small for a full insert of or bridging threads, I turn to a more flexible method, one that respects the original texture without stressing the surrounding canvas. For these small holes or missing fibers, I prepare a custom fiber pulp. I begin by cutting a small piece of soft, loosely woven canvas, ideally linen with a woolier texture. I chop it down finely, almost to dust. Once I have gathered enough, I add a small amount of reversible adhesive and mix it gently until it becomes a smooth paste, like a fibrous putty. This mix has the flexibility and grip to integrate directly into the weave of the original canvas. Using a spatula, I carefully place the pulp into the small voids, pressing it gently till the fibers merge naturally with the surrounding ones. As it dries, the mass bends and becomes part of the canvas itself, reinforcing the weak spot without adding a patch or visible repair. Once dried, the surface is solid, stable, and ready for further treatments, without any visual bulk or interference with the texture. With all structural damage repaired, I move on to address the canvas edges. As seen earlier in the video, the outer borders of the painting are compromised. In this case, a full relining is not necessary. Instead, I apply a technique known as strip lining. I prepare linen stripes by removing several weaved threads along the edge that will be glued to the original canvas. This prevents any weave pattern from transferring to the front. Next, I apply heat-activated reversible adhesive along the canvas borders. The strips are laid down carefully and activated with controlled heat. This forms a strong bond with the original canvas and reinforces the edges, allowing the painting to be safely stretched again on a new stretcher. With all structural damage addressed and the canvas now stable, I move on to an essential phase of visual recovery, starting by removing the old varnish. Before beginning, I carried out a light surface cleaning. This preliminary step helps me to remove the superficial grime and allows the solvents to reach the varnish layer more effectively. I start by the figures, this beautifully painted pair of lovers. Their faces and costumes are rendered with such finesse that they immediately suggest a painting from the early 1700s. The clothing styles confirm this. The lady wears an extravagant rococo gown with elaborate ruffles, lace, and wide panniers, typical of aristocratic fashion of the time. Her powdered hairstyle, raised high and adorned with fabric and ribbons, reflects the trend among noblest women of the late Baroque and early Rococo courts. The gentleman, equally elegant, wears a tailcoat, lace cravat, and knee breeches, all hallmarks of the 18th century upper-class menswear. His white periwig, curled and tied at the back, was a symbol of status and refinement. These details are incredibly well preserved beneath the discolored surface. As I remove the aged varnish, the original colors begin to re-emerge, revealing the artist's intent, not hidden under a yellow veil but fresh and nuanced once again. For the figures I use a free solvent and a large swab, working carefully in circular motions to lift the oxidized varnish without disturbing the original paint beneath. The transformation is immediate and satisfying. Skin tones regain their clarity, shadows become more subtle, and once muted, fabrics now shimmer with restored depth. For the background landscape, I take a different approach. Here, I apply a gel-based cleaning solution where the solvents are suspended in a more controlled medium. Using a soft brush, I gently agitate the varnish in paint. This gel gives me greater precision and safety in textured or more delicate areas. Once the varnish begins to loosen, I lift it away using a ball of clean cotton, taking with it years of oxidation and surface dullness. This stage always feels like uncovering history. What was once dim and obscured now breathes again with light and color, allowing the painting to speak with the voice it once had centuries ago. With the varnish fully removed and the original paint now revealed, the next priority is to re-level the surface of the painting. Over the centuries, the canvas has developed numerous surface irregularities, especially where repairs have been made. Areas where incrustations were inserted or fibers were bridged often sit lower than the surrounding paint layer. These depressions, if left untreated, would become visible, distracting once the retouching begins. To correct this, I apply a specially formulated conservation grade putty This material is designed to fill only the losses and remain flexible and reversible, respecting the long-term stability of the painting. Using a small metal spatula, I spread the putty carefully into the recessed zones, including along the tear, canvas inserts, and perimeter losses. The goal here is not to cover, but to bring the surface back to a uniform level, creating a smooth transition between the original paint and the repaired sections. Once applied, the putty is allowed to dry slowly. I then refine the surface using a soft and polished cloth, removing excess material and making sure the filled areas match the texture and gloss of the original painting. This is a subtle but essential stage. Without it, any retouching added later would reveal itself under a ranking light, creating unwanted shadows and visual distractions. But when done carefully, this step allows the painting to be seen as a continuous uniform surface, not a patchwork of damage and repair. Only after this careful preparation is complete can the in-painting phase begin, where color is reintroduced to areas of loss. With the painting structure fully stabilized and the surface leveled, the time has come to restore the object's original function. The painting must be once again become a painting. To achieve this, I use a new stretcher with an expansion system, the keys, custom made from dried wood. This not only provides structural stability but also allows for future tension adjustments without the need for disassembly. I begin by assembling the stretcher. The four corners are precisely squared, preserving the natural expandability enabled by the key system. The result is a firm, perfectly aligned rectangle ready to receive the canvas. Next, I carefully position the painting onto the new structure. The original canvas, now reinforced with strip lining, is slightly larger than the frame, allowing me to work with slack and adjust the tension accurately. I use stainless steel nails securing the centers of opposing sides first, then working in alternating directions. This ensures an even distribution of the tension across the entire surface. Once the canvas is fully secured, I trim and adjust the excess of linen from the strip lining, folding and fastening it to the back. This step ensures a clean finish and prevents any localized stress. I then insert the expansion keys into the corners of the stretcher. These small wooden edges placed in opposing angles can be subtly adjusted over time, allowing the stretcher to expand slightly and retension the canvas without removing it. To prevent accidents such as a key falling between the canvas and the stretcher, which could cause serious damage to the painting, I follow a traditional safety procedure. I tie each key with a transparent fishing line, securing it discreetly with a firm knot. This simple gesture can prevent future tragedies, especially in the old and valuable paintings, where a fall or impact could result in irreversible loss. Now, with the canvas properly stretched and protected, the work is ready for the final stage of the intervention, the in-painting, where the artist's language is once again spoken. Before any pigments are applied, an essential preparatory step takes place. It's the application of a thin insulation layer of conservation grade varnish. This transparent barrier serves two critical functions. First, it physically separates the original paint layer from the new retouching work, ensuring that any future interventions can be reversed without disturbing the underlying original. Secondly, the varnish temporarily restores color saturation, bringing the painting closer to its intended appearance. This is especially helpful when mixing pigments for retouching, as it allows me to match the original hues more accurately. Without this varnish, the faded matte surface might mislead the eye, making retouching imprecise or dull. The process is performed with a soft white brush and applied evenly across the entire surface. I work under controlled natural light, which ensures better visibility of texture, tone, and surface balance. Once dry, this varnish forms a stable foundation on which the actual retouching can begin, safely, precisely, and with full respect for the integrity of the artwork. This delicate stage, I use a precise mixture of pure pigments and varnish to recreate the missing colors and restore the visual continuity of the artwork. Color matching is carried out meticulously, always respecting the original palette and tone of the painting. I begin with a sort of warm-up, start with less demanding areas, typically located along the edges of the canvas. These zones allow me to fine-tune the pigment's consistency, brushstroke rhythm, and color blending without compromising the focal areas. Next, I move on to the background elements, carefully reintegrating vegetation, sky, or architectural features. These components are treated with great sensitivity, replicating original brushworks and ensuring that the restored sections merge invisible with the surrounding composition. Only after the background is harmonized I do begin the retouching of the main figures, often the most expressive and complex parts of the painting. Faces, hands, and drapery require absolute precision. I approach these areas last, once I have fully chromatic and material control, ensuring subtle transitions and preserving of the integrity and emotional expression of the original work, and always applying fully reversible techniques. With the retouching complete and every chromatic transition carefully blended, the painting is ready to receive its final protective layer, the final varnish. This step is far more than finishing touch. It plays a vital role in both the visual and physical integrity of the restored artwork. The final varnish serves three essential purposes. First, it unifies the surface gloss, bringing cohesion between original and retouched areas. Without it, even the most precise reintegration might remain slightly visible under raking light due to the differing surface textures. Second, it provides long-term protection. The varnish acts as a sacrificial layer, shielding the paint surface from dust, fluents, and other changes in the environment. If future conservations are needed, this layer can be safely removed, leaving the original intact. Finally, it restores the optical depth and richness intended by the artist. Colors regain their full saturation, shadows deepen, and highlights recover their brilliance. The painting comes back to life both visually and materially. In this case, the varnish is applied using a soft brush. Every movement is slow and deliberate, ensuring an even coat without bubbles or brush marks. Once dry, the painting enters a short, resting phase. During this time, I perform a final inspection, ensuring all elements from tension to tonality are stable, harmonious, and in balance. The restoration is now complete. Before I show you the before and after of this painting restoration, I really want to thank you for your support and for watching the video. This was a very special restoration. It allowed me to show you so many of the procedures I have to perform when making a painting restoration. Some of them were quite challenging and very time consuming, but I'm very happy with the final result, and I hope you are too. If you know someone who might enjoy to watch this video, please feel free to share it on your social media, for example. Thank you again, and now I show you the before and after. Take care and see you on the next video. This painting was once obscured by a very thick layer of dark yellow varnish, making it nearly impossible to see any of the beautifully painted details. However, thanks to several meticulous restoration procedures, the transformation is now evident. When we compare the painting before and after restoration, the change is striking. What was once fragile and fragmented has regained its presence, coherence, and voice. The artwork no longer speaks of loss but continuity. It is ready to return not merely to a wall, but to a life of being seen, understood, and preserved for generations to come.